Hey everybody, this is the Undead Viking. I want to talk to you about this game. It is called Battle Blakes. Now you might be saying, what is a Battle Blake? Well, Blake is a dude that has a lot of different multiple personalities, these different Blakes that are running around in his head. And depending upon the situation and depending on what's going on in Blake's life, he adopts a certain type of personality or a certain type of role or guise that he goes by to deal with that situation. And in this game, each player is going to be taking on the role of one of those parts of his mentality, his character, and they are going to battle it out against the other types of Blakes that are there in the hopes of being the last Blake standing, and therefore then they can take over Blake, and then Blake can become that particular Blake, be it a gamer or a hero or a graduate student, and so on and so forth. This is a lighthearted battle card game for 2 to 4 people. It has a lot of fun. It has a cool, unique theme. It's very fast-paced, and like I said, it has some very humorous artwork and it's very whimsical feel to it, if you will. So let me show you how to play Battle Blakes, and then we'll come back here and I'll tell you what I think in a little more detail. All right, cool. Alright, so this is Battle Blakes, and I'm just going to kind of go over quickly how the game is played and what you're looking at here. So, I've gone ahead and kind of just set it up briefly. This game is for up to 4 people, so this is the idea that I'm playing right here, and this is my setup so far. Each person starts with 6 cards, which I've dealt to myself already. I've already chosen my character. At the beginning of the game, each person is given 2 Blake character cards. Depending upon which one they choose, they're going to put that one down there. And then, unlike a lot of other games where like the one that you don't choose is just given away, you actually do, notice the back of this card looks exactly like that. You actually do shuffle those into the deck, and I'll explain why you do that just in a little bit. It's just one of those like special things that can happen during the game. It's called like Blunder Twin Powers Activate, where you can kind of combine powers, but I'll get back to that when I talk more about the different attacks. It should be noted that, like, since there are more than 8 of these, you're not going to see every single one in every single game, even with 4 people. And the ones that aren't, handed out at the beginning are actually gotten rid of. You don't add those to the deck. So, anyway, these are the event cards. You aren't going to use all of those either, depending on the number of players. So, and that is the timer of the game. So, after every round, you flip over another event, and you take care of that. The events just basically affect the game and for that round. So, like here, this is the arm wrestling match event. Everybody gets +1 verbal assault, which is one of the attack values that you has. And Gamer Blake receives an additional +2 verbal assault, and they have a little like blurb there for it. And so, like, let me see, where's Gamer Blake, so you can kind of see how that works. There. So if you happen to be Gamer Blake, then you would get +2 verbal assault. Now, so the stats on these cards, this is your starting self-esteem or your hit points. This is your verbal assault skill, which would be 5, and then if that event, it would be 7. That is your skin, how thick your skin is, and that's your defense you have against verbal assaults. And then this last one is your brain power, and that's for Battle of Wits, because you can do either a Battle of Wits or a verbal assault with your attack. And the difference between those two is that a verbal assault is just, like, as you can probably say, somebody calling you a name or whatever. You don't really have a defense for that, it's just whether or not you can take it. But a Battle of Wits, you actually do compare both of the scores and determine who wins the Battle of Wits. But anyway, regardless, so the start player marker is that. So if I'm the start player, how you do your turn is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your cards, and if you have any buffs in your hand that you want to play, you can play those. And I do have a buff here. This is the Magical Flask, and it says a +1 verbal assault. The effects of going out for the night event are doubled for you, so that's a special thing that happens. And so if you want to do that, it's going to give me +1 verbal assault. Well, I picked, the Bob Ross artistic guy, which I think is cool. And so if I want to use this buff, I go ahead and I just place it underneath, like so. And so then that'll, like, show me that I got another +1 to my verbal assault. So I'll go ahead and do that. You add that on there, like so. And then, after you played any buffs that you possibly have, you're going to go into your, like, choosing to attack. So now you have to make an attack each and every round, and you have to make an attack against somebody else. So let's say somebody was playing Gamer Blake, right? And I decided I'm going to attack Gamer Blake. But if you notice, he has a pretty thick skin, you know, because he's played lots of games and people have called him names. And I don't really, even with my 4 verbal assault, I do 1 point of damage, you know, off beat. But these action cards no, those aren't the action cards, I apologize. These action cards have the like these things where you can actually, you know, add to verbal assault, you can add to plus skin, you know, minus from skin, things like that. And so if you do an attack on somebody, they likely have those cards in their hand that are going to aid and help them out and possibly hurt you as well. But let's just say I did that. So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to verbally assault Gamer Blake, and I'm going to, hopefully do at least a point of damage to him because his skin is 3. Now, me and the other player, and every player, technically, at the table are allowed to play action cards that can affect what's going on. Like this, somebody could play that and remove my buff, so I wouldn't have that +1 to my verbal assault. I could play this on myself, so I'd add 2, so I'd do an extra 2 points of damage. He could play, +1 skin on himself, so he could take less damage, and so on and so forth. And everybody plays cards until they're either out of cards or people decide, okay, we're all done. And after everybody's played their cards and everybody is satisfied with what they've done, you then go ahead and total up how well that worked. And so in this case, I added 2, maybe he added, a +1 skin, so he had 4 skin, and then he'd have like 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 to 4 armor, or, the skin rating of 4, and then we would go ahead and just take 2 points of damage, and that's how you work out that. Now, a Battle of Wits is different because you have, the stats of 3 and the defense is 3. But if through either the base stats of the character or the cards that people might play or the situation that they're in, the person that you're attacking could end up with a higher Battle of Wit score than you, and then would actually do damage to the person that is actually prompted the attack, because it's a Battle of Wits, 2 people arguing amongst themselves. So, Battle of Wits, you might say, well, why would I do that? Well, in a lot of cases, it's the only option you have because maybe they have way too high of a skin rating, and you just can't possibly affect it. So you have to go for, the attack that is going to have a better chance of succeeding. Or if you have really good cards that you can use to assist you. So once you use all those, so I used my +2 verbal assault, and I used let's say I even played this -2 skin. So you place those in the discard pile. After you've gone ahead and done that, you then have to draw. You get to draw 3 cards from the deck. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3. Let's see what we got here. Well, this is kind of cool. I got a hobby knife. Now it says it's +1 verbal assault, but you notice it says if played on an artistic Blake, this card becomes a buff. So I am the artistic Blake. So on my next turn, I could play that, and I could get another permanent +1. I got a buff, but you notice it's -1 wit. Well, why would I do that? You can play a buff on somebody else's card. And you could say, well, I'm going to buff you and actually -1 from your wit by doing so. And the same deal with the bear trap. You've been cornered at a booth and can't escape. Try with all you might, but they got you locked in. So you can play that on an enemy as well when you're playing those buffs. And buffs are tough to get rid of. I mean, you do have cards that allow you to get rid of them, but having a devalue buff on somebody is actually a very powerful strategy, and you can take them out pretty easily if you can manage to stack a few of those on them. After you draw those cards, it just goes to the next person. It goes all the way around the table. You then turn over the next event. Let's see what it is. Oh, it's pretty good for me, actually. +1 skin for everybody during the art project, and then Artistic Blake receives an additional +2 skin. So you just keep track of that, and you do so until you get through this entire deck. As soon as that's done, whoever has the most self-esteem left, there is a backside to these where you can see it goes all the way down. whoever has the most self-esteem left after you've gotten through all of the event cards will be the winner. You do, after you go around, you do hand off the start player to the person to your left, and so they become the start player, and the person that was the start player the last turn will be the last player on that particular turn. So this is one of those games where you kind of have to do... You don't want to use up all your cards on like crazy and not have any cards in your hand. Not having any cards in your hand tells everybody else at the table that you are able to be attacked and you are easy picking. So that might be something you want to watch out for. The only other thing I wanted to mention before I go on to my final thoughts on this one there is one other way, and this is optional, that the game can end. So there are these two events that are called Evil Nemesis and the Tyrant Boss. And so if you draw the Tyrant Boss event, which, -3 self-esteem and Despair Blake only receives -1, and I should mention that if you ever run out of self-esteem, you're just out of the game. But trust me, it's like if everybody's getting beaten down that much, you're going to be joined by other people very, very quickly. And that also can end the game as well before the events are gone. If everybody else is knocked out, the only one left, obviously you win the game. But if you get Tyrant Boss and then you get Evil Nemesis, the game ends after this round if the Tyrant Boss event occurred in a previous round. So you can actually have the game end earlier if you have that actually happen with these two events. And that's an optional rule. You don't have to use that, but we instituted the rule, and it happened a couple of times. It was kind of neat because then you can't just always guarantee, okay, we got one more round. You could have a situation where the game does end a little earlier. So this is one of those games, you've probably played games like this. There are tons of these cards. I mean, that's like the cool thing is like, it's just like all kinds of these cards that you have access to. You'd have to really like kind of go through all of them to like really understand. I like that one, the arm tassels, so, but anyway, Ultimate Warrior kind of thing. But, so it's like all these different buffs and actions and so forth. So the options of what can happen are just, well, innumerable, really. And so if you've played games like this, you know exactly what you're going to be looking for, but I really dig the theme. I dig the idea of you all battling it out inside Blake's head. It's kind of like very Inside Out or Herman's Headish as far as the theme goes. And it's definitely a very lighthearted game. This is a game I can play over my lunch hour. And a game that I can play with my daughter and my family, and we can all just kind of not take it so seriously, but have a lot of fun at the same time. But I'll talk more about that in my final thoughts, which I'll do right now. Battle Blakes! Alright, so there you go. That is how the game is played. It's, this, as far as the rules and the mechanisms of the game go, it's not going to bowl you over with its complexity. However, like I said, you get this giant deck of cards and things that go on that is going to make each and every game different and change it up. Now, I realize I forgot to mention one thing when I was showing you how to play the game. If you manage to draw like the other, like a second character, a second section of Blake's personality, and you've played this one. If you want to, you can go ahead and combine them in like Blunder Twin Powers activate, and then the stats on the bottom, you will just combine those into a total super powerful Blake for when you go ahead and do your attack, or be it verbal assault or a battle of wits. Now, when you do that, any existing buffs that you have won't be counted. You kind of put those aside for a little bit. You process the attack as normal, playing action cards. But then after the attack is successful or unsuccessful, you go ahead and get rid of the extra one, put that in the discard pile, and then any buffs you have will go back onto your original Blake and have those. So I apologize for not mentioning how that works, but it's kind of a cool little special thing that you can do, like to have like this big huge attack one particular round, and like if your opponents aren't suspecting it, you can kind of wait in the weeds a little bit. And then, wait for them to be low on cards. Then you can just, bam, attack them and do a good bit of damage in that moment. But, so there you go. As I said, the game is a lighter game. My daughter and I have enjoyed it a great deal, playing it back and forth and coming up with cool little combination of Blakes and what have you to fight it out. This is a game that I've played prior to D&D sessions. As we're waiting for other players to show up, we have like a D&D group of 6-7 people, but when there are only 3 or 4, we need to kill some time. This is a game that we've played and had a lot of fun with, just goofing around, having a conversation. Scott Nicholson always referred to these lighter games as conversational games, that you can, you don't have to be completely zeroed in on the gameplay and concentrating on what am I going to do next turn. You can take a lighter, more playful tone to the game. Winning or losing really doesn't matter, but so you're carrying on conversations, you're talking, you're updating your character sheet, you're doing all those other things, and you're still just playing this game, and it kind of facilitates a way to use up that time as you're waiting for the bigger game to begin. And so yes, this does dip its toes into the whole filler area. I think it lasts maybe a little bit too long to be considered a real filler, but you could definitely just reduce the number of events and make the game speed up as well. Now, I do think that the game is actually better when you play it extendedly, just because of the fact that the more crazy cards and the more combinations of the different buffs and what have you happen make the game a lot more fun. So there you go. I enjoyed this a great deal. I see imminent amount of replayability due to the number of cards. I see an imminent open door for expansions just by adding more and more cards and more different Blakes and what have you to the game. If you like these little tiny battle card games, I think you're really going to like this one. So go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions about Battle Blakes, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.